people say they retire, it's not, I've retired, I'm going to Florida and I'm golfing. It's just never this. It's, I'm retiring until somebody makes me mad and then come for them. Hi, I'm Teresa. Welcome to Cocoon Cast, where we deep dive into movies and discuss all things cinema.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. Today we have a special treat for you. 2 new movies. My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3 and The Equalizer 3. My Big Fat Equalizer, baby.
Perfect.
We also have some semi-surprising news. Liam Neeson gets real with grief and some of the career choices that he's made. And Tom Cruise is gearing up for his most impossible mission yet.
Great. Let's get started.
After the death of her father, Tula and her family are emotionally adrift, but decide to have a reunion with their non-American family members in Greece all the same. With cultural and generational differences affecting their emotional journeys, will the family be able to come together and rekindle their love for one another?
Rebecca, we both wanted to see this movie. I know you and I, in the past, we'd seen 1 and 2.
That's correct.
Even though it had been a long time, actually. 1 came out in 2002, and you were pretty young back then.
To put this in perspective, the most famous cast member at the time of the original movie premiering was from a TV show called Northern Exposure.
Remember that?
The most famous cast member in this movie is from NSYNC.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Well, and it's funny, too. This movie, back in the day, so number 1 came out in 2002. Budget was really small for Hollywood. $5 million. Made $368 million. So many people have seen this movie.
This movie is iconic in the rom-com landscape.
Well, and that's true. To talk about the genre it's a rom-com. And I remember, it's funny because part of it is thinking back, like, okay, what do you remember most? Remember the acting, remember the story, the love story. Really sweet, actually, as you're talking about the rom-com. But you know what I remember the most?
The jokes.
The jokes and the Windex.
Oh my gosh, the Windex. The Windex is iconic. Also vegetarian references.
Right, for her husband and the vegetarian reference. So that goes pretty far back. Number 2 was 2016. These movies, at the time between these movies is interesting to me because we're talking about 2002, and at the time of this recording, we're in 2023. So 21 years ago. And people are anxiously waiting for this installment. So number 3.
It's interesting to me because it's not something that I expected, but it's coming. I'm like, okay, I'm interested.
Well, and it's interesting because you're in your late 20s and way back in the day. And you're still interested in seeing the movie. You still were like, oh, let's go see it. Even though the trailer gives a few spoilers, I would say.
I would agree with you. I didn't have as many fond memories of the second one, but I thought that they touched on some very intergenerational topics that, frankly, should be. It's so
Agreed.
easy for rom-coms to fall into this trap of, oh, the main couple doesn't love each other anymore. And I never have to worry about that with these movies.
No, and even though I would say there are parts of this movie that feel predictable, would you agree with that, or expected?
Yes. Troporific.
Great phrase. I enjoyed it, even though I knew where it was going. Family values, talking about the importance of family. I think there were some Greek stereotypes. Obviously, if you're not Greek, some of the things may be over your head, but I don't think it was meant to be over your head to lose the audience. It's just, different families, different cultures.
It's author appeal, honestly.
Yeah.
Nia's writing from a Greek perspective, so of course she's going to talk about stereotypes and things of that nature that would appeal to a Greek audience.
Well, and I think other families could relate to that. Overly intrusive families, the young daughter, she's younger than you. However, I'm sure you can relate to the parent piece, the aunts, the uncle piece.
Just to clarify, I'm not a parent.
Correct. Well, right. And the crazy uncle piece. I think that there are some things that are just universal. And I respect her for going there and doing it actually very sweetly.
I never was worried throughout this movie of, oh gosh, they're just going to go for it to skewer him. It felt like, I've lived this, let's make fun of it.
And that's how it felt. It felt very sweet. And you're talking about the main character, right? Nia and her husband. They still love each other. They're still very much attracted to each other. And I like the part because her husband is not Greek. And obviously that could be a problem with an entire family that's Greek, and the expectation is you'll marry someone Greek. He was very well threaded into this family.
Yeah, the first conflict of the original movie was, how is Nia's boyfriend, who became her husband?
Correct. Spoiler alert. 21 years later. Sorry, we're spoiling it for you if you haven't seen it.
How is Nia's husband going to acclimate to this?
Correct. 21 years later, what does that now look like?
And there's still some cultural differences that they do touch on, but they do respect and love him.
And I appreciated that. So it wasn't he was on the outside, or they were making fun of him, or he was just always feeling as if he wasn't accepted. He was very well accepted into the family. The other part that I really appreciated is it wasn't as if 1 and 2 and 3 all happened in the course of 3 days. It truly was over the course of years. Her mother, they talk about her declining health. The father, we hear about what has since happened to him. So there's a real part where we are now with them today. The daughter, she's there, and she's older, and she's in college, and she has a love interest, and life continues to move forward. And I think that is actually hard to do in a movie.
I think it's harder to do in a space that focuses on the very young or the very old. This is very much there's something that will touch on for most of the audience.
Well, and the other part that I appreciate, we were talking about, the length of time that had happened during the course of this movie. And I appreciated that Nia came on before the movie started. I think it was 5 minutes. You were saying about 5 minutes. I think maybe a little more, maybe a little less. But she recapped My Big Fat Greek Wedding 1 and the second. One thing that did grab my attention was we went on a Friday later evening, and it was packed. The theater was packed.
I was really shocked because, first of all, I'm trying to find my seat, so I'm somewhat looking up.
Sure.
I look up and I'm expecting maybe like 10, 15 people.
Sure.
Sea of people.
Well, when looking at the cinema community that chose to go see this movie, what did you notice? Because I know what I noticed.
I noticed the audience skewed primarily female and just a bit older. But there was still some people around my age. Nobody super young, but definitely like late 20s and above.
Well, and I think late 20s would be I agree with that. I think that would be the youngest. And I know being in my 50s, I thought, maybe people 40s, 50s. There were people 10, 20 years older than I was. And I just thought that's so great because we all need movies to go see. We need movies that we love and we enjoy and we're excited about. And to see a different demographic than even our next movie that we're going to be discussing, that so many people really liked it and there was buzz. I was laughing. A member of our cinema community said that, he'd used the men's room and he came back out and he said, they're talking about it in there. The men enjoyed this movie.
Everyone I've brought up the fact that this movie exists has gotten excited about it.
Which says something great. And so Nia Vardalos had written the movie, acted in the movie, directed the movie.
She's basically like Orson Welles at this point.
Oh my goodness, she did it all, and I just thought that was pretty great. The movie is PG-13.
Yes, there's one moment of brief topless nudity.
Correct. And it's to me it's blink and you miss it. There is some suggestive material, so again I think that brings it to the PG-13.
I think it's definitely earned its PG-13.
I would agree.
If you're a parent, you might want to see this one beforehand just to make sure, for your family what fits, what doesn't fit.
Well, in suggestive material and blink to me is a whole lot different than a hard PG-13. And I agree with you. I think every family needs to decide for themselves. Each individual needs to decide for themselves. However, it wasn't heavy.
No, there are some PG-13 movies I'm like, you're veering awfully close to an R-rated movie.
Correct. And as we said, this was a positive movie. It was a very loving movie toward family and Greek culture. And the phrase you use a lot is the love letter. right? It was a love letter to families and Greek culture and callbacks to the first and second.
There's definitely a lot of jokes that pay off here, so I would recommend watching the first two.
I would agree with that. Do we have any questions from the box?
Why don't you talk about the different audience types? Maybe who the movie really will hit with and who do you think might want to skip this movie?
I would say, based on a little bit earlier of what we had said, just to clarify maybe a little bit more, probably an older demographic. And I would say probably teens or preteens, maybe a little bit bored, or it may feel a little bit too familiar. It may feel like, oh my gosh, that's my family. I don't really want to go pay money and go see my family. But one thing that I did notice was there were multiple generations sitting together, 3 generations, 60s, 70s, 40s, 50s, and 20-ish, I would say.
Late 20s.
Correct. So I think that there is an element to that was interesting. But I honestly was surprised that there were men and women. And as we had said, there was a buzz and there was some energy in the theater around that. But I don't recall a movie that we have seen more recently that was that full with that older demographic.
The closest I can think of is maybe 80 for Brady.
Oh, that would be a good example. That would be a great example.
That definitely skewed a bit older. 40s and above were the primary audience for this movie.
And being older than 40s, right? Being in my mid 50s, I enjoyed the movie. However, when the first one came out, I was 30-ish, somewhere in the 30s.
I remember the first one coming out and we'd have like late 20 somethings talking about it.
That's correct. So it may have had more of a universal appeal, but I would say men and women would probably enjoy it. However, I think more women probably enjoyed it.
This movie's going to hit what I call the Mamma Mia quotient.
Oh, okay.
These are people that are interested in stories that sometimes delve into very difficult topics, but they want a bit of fluff and entertainment with it too.
Correct. And it did, for a rom-com, it did have more substance than I would say some of the typical. Do we have any questions from the box?
If a Big Fat Greek Wedding 4 came out, do you think you would go see it? Do you think you'd want to see the story continue?
The franchise hasn't completely soured for me yet, but I think that there's some stuff that they need to work on.
I think they are planning for a 4 just given the nature of the daughter and her love connection and moving in that direction. I had the feeling that they were going, well, wait for a wedding 4. And no spoilers, but there was a wedding in this one also.
It's not what you expect.
It's not what you expect. Rebecca, 5 moths are flying very close to me.
They like stalking me.
And they're stalking you, and they want to know where should they land for my Big Fat Greek Wedding 3.
Well, first off, don't land on my cardigan. I really like this one. I'm going to say 2 and a wing for this one.
Okay. And main reason?
It's definitely better than 2. It's a little bit above average, but it's not as great as the first one.
Okay. Do you think it's worth a watch?
I think it's worth a watch if you're already invested in the franchise.
Okay, so the average Anthony would say what to this movie, do you think?
I think the average Anthony would look at this as a nice fluffy date night piece.
Ah, okay, so good date night movie.
Yeah, watch the first 2 during the day, go see the third one at night.
Wow, it's a Greek wedding marathon. Wedding, and they're in Greece. I think for me, a bit higher, I would say a 3, a solid 3. Acting was solid. The writing was solid. The fact that I wanted to see the third one, even though I couldn't quite remember the second one, enjoyed the first one. And as you had said, there's some really mature themes, and I appreciated that. A 4 feels a bit heavy to me. As you said, there could be a little bit tightening of the script. There could be a little bit more in the acting department that would, intrigue you or pull you in a little bit more. I think the biggest part that was hard for me is if you like predictable movies or if you like movies that you know where they're going, and as you had said, the callbacks and things, if you enjoy movies like that, you're going to enjoy this movie a lot. However, for me, I enjoy some variety, some change, some unexpected, and it didn't have enough of that for me to say, oh, it's a solid 4. I would definitely go see it.
So I have a question for you.
Of
then.
course.
So you're saying it feels seamless within the franchise.
Yes.
But on its own, it's an movie.
It's just kind of but it does stand on its own. It really does. But I agree with the average. It's above average to me in a lot of respects, which is why it would be a 3. And to me, it is worth a watch. It is a good date night movie. It is positive. It felt kind to each person and definitely validated the family, which I think is great at this point. And multi-generations, it's not just, me and my husband or me and my kids. It's the grandparents, the aunts and the uncles, despite their, character defects, their challenges, their, idiosyncrasies. It was very cohesive, and I appreciated that.
I never felt like anybody was being actively malicious. It felt kind of teasing in some ways.
It did, which a good, healthy family, that's what that would feel like. If you enjoyed our review on My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3, please like, which helps more viewers find our cinema community, and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming reviews, and please share with your friends. And now it's time for our second new movie review. This week we chose Equalizer 3.
After a close call, Robert McCall is trying to recover his health in a coastal Italian town. However, after a series of incidents affect his new neighbors, Robert is forced to choose. Will he remain in the shadows, or will he become the Equalizer once more?
So this is Equalizer 3. Tell us a little bit about why you wanted to see Equalizer 3.
I pitched this movie to the Cocoon Cast team because the Equalizer is seen as almost a response to a lot of more graphic, violence-heavy action films. It's seen as almost a thinking movie. The movie series also boasts a pretty spectacular department of talent on deck. We have Denzel Washington.
Yes, like Denzel Washington.
We have Anton Fuqua. He actually has directed Training Day, which I know a lot of people still have very fond memories of.
Another Denzel movie.
He's also directed the first 2 Equalizer films.
And you remember Equalizer. So to be fair to our cinema community, I have not seen Equalizer 1 or 2. I've seen snippets of that. That's not fair. I've seen little parts of it. You've seen 1 and 2.
That's correct.
And 1 came out 2014 and 2 was 2018.
I believe that's correct. There's generally been at least a 2 to 3 year gap between these films.
Okay, not like we were talking about My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3, which is the 20-year gap, the 21-year gap. Okay. So you're real familiar with the franchise.
It's not my favorite action franchise, but it's something that I pay attention to.
Well, and you're coming back for 3.
I'm coming back for 3 because if this guy doesn't give up at this point, what's going to make him give up? So it's almost like a character question at this point. Also, Denzel, I think his acting needed work in this movie, but he always entertains me no matter what he does.
He's a fabulous actor. We saw him in Macbeth.
Oh, I loved him in Macbeth.
And he's a wonderful actor and an action hero. And I like the thought around it's a thinking movie. And to me, it was. And as I said, I hadn't seen the previous 2, but I was on board very quickly. It really outlined what the story was. Apparently, he was going into retirement, going to this nice little Italian village, and crazy ensues.
Crazy always seems to ensue before the Equalizer shows up.
I'm just laughing. Crazy finds Denzel Washington.
Yeah, I think he might agree with you on this one.
Poor guy. He should talk to me. I should have told him, look out, don't go. He went. But
Not willingly.
And it was okay. I think one of the parts that I wasn't expecting, and our cinema community can probably think I'm a little crazy on it, but I wasn't expecting the graphicness of the violence that did ensue.
That's the thing, is the Equalizer really takes their time in between moments of action. It's not just John Wick, wham, bam, he's dead. It's character beat. Oh, we should probably kill somebody now because this is what the audience is expecting from a guy with a slightly hair-triggered temper that kind of wants to dial down things.
Well, and he comes in, he has an injury. He's in recovery around the injury. So it's not he shows up and boom, it happens. And it's like you said, it just slowly builds. And you follow along from his perspective. You see, so Robert McCall, his character, so you see Denzel as Robert having frustration, and his frustration does tend to build. And you start to go, oh, if I were that person, I would feel that way. If someone were coming into my village and bothering the people that I've grown to enjoy and like.
That's the thing is, I liked how it really wasn't immediate, like, constant barrage of violence. It is very punchy. It is very graphic. At some point, you see somebody's brain splattered on the floor in full first-person detail.
Not expecting that, must say. Was a surprise. A lot of knives I'm noticing were used in the filming of this movie.
They seem to be a reoccurring theme. I could probably script a video essay talking about weapons in this series and what they say about the characters.
Well, it is kind of silly, right? That I haven't seen the other ones, but yet I love Denzel Washington as an actor. This, to me, it felt like worth a watch. I wanted to see it. The cinematography, we talked about the cinematography, that really stood out.
Well, it should stand out to you. Robert Richardson has won 3 Oscars for his cinematography work.
Wow, that's huge.
Keep in mind, he is one of only 3 people alive to do this. He won for Hugo, The Aviator, and JFK.
Wow, and those are all well-known movies, good movies.
Yeah, I would say except for Hugo, it kind of got shuffled under the radar when it came out, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But if you know somebody high profile, odds are that Robert has worked with them in some capacity.
Well, like you had said, the director had come back. Clearly, Denzel Washington came back. So there is something that is familiar about this movie if you have seen it before. I laughed because in between the knives in the brain, I noticed the set design. And as you know, I tend to notice set design. But it was funny because there was one scene where I'm like, oh, it's beautiful. Look at that painting. Look at the view, because it was filmed in Italy. Nice, beautiful backdrop. And suddenly crazy ensues. But it felt, it sounds crazy, but it felt somewhat authentic given the nature of. And Dakota Fanning, she was in there as little CIA director. And you had said a nod back to a previous one as well as Emma.
I'm not going to spoil it.
Sure.
Because I think it's a pretty easy guess once you get into the movie. But I think it would kind of take away some of the enjoyment
I'm
of
laughing.
the movie.
I'm the only one who didn't know where it was going until they literally said, oh, by the way, for people like me, in case you have not seen the other 2, we're going to tell you what's going on. And they did.
Which was the last 5 minutes of the
Correct.
movie.
Correct. And
I've just seen too many of these movies where I can tell where it's going, though.
Well, so that's a fair statement. Did it feel predictable to you having seen the previous 2 and the action genre you tend to gravitate toward as well?
Yes. And that's part of the reason why I did not enjoy this movie as much as I was hoping I would enjoy this movie.
Okay.
I enjoyed a lot more of the back-end creative work. Like, there's some really awesome, like, little snippets that allow you to see the characters without feeling overbearing. Richard Wenk previously has written all the other films in this franchise. Keep your ear out for him. He is going to be writing Kraven the Hunter at the time of this taping.
Oh, wow. Okay. So he's still pretty active. So that encouraged you to go see it, it sounds like.
It did. And I wasn't as like, oh my gosh, yes, this movie is everything I'm living up to. It just felt kind of, he's trying to retire again.
Again. Well, and there's always a part where, and I've learned in this genre, when people say they retire, it's not, I've retired, I'm going to Florida and I'm golfing. It's just never this. It's, I'm retiring until somebody makes me mad and then I'm coming for them. And I'm like, oh, they're not retiring, please.
Love to see the Social Security check on that one.
I know. It's like, I'm ready to draw. No, I'm ready to kill more people. More people are coming. Knives. I need to be ready. And clearly, Denzel Washington.
Again with the knives.
The knives were a thing.
The other thing I was blithely fascinated was I don't like the first Equalizer. True confession.
Wow.
I just was bored with it. Second one, I'm like, okay, they're getting better. Third one, I'm like, hopefully they get better. And just kind of fell out from under me.
Oof. Well, and there were parts to me that felt a little nodding to Godfather.
Scarface. That was
Scarface too.
Especially
yes.
there's this one scene with the statues. I picked that up after we'd watched
Well,
it.
after, spending a vacation with your father watching every single Godfather. Yes, over the course of, I think, 2 days, maybe 3. I don't know. It was a lot. So I'm very much, Godfather's on my mind at this point.
Well, you even picked up a nod.
I
That I was really
did.
impressed with.
There it is. There it is.
All I'm saying is oranges.
Oh, I laughed at that. I knew you'd appreciate that. Usually you're over there going, and I'm over there going, oranges. And to be clear, we saw it in Dolby. Wasn't too crowded. I would say we saw it on opening weekend.
There's a pretty healthy audience for this movie.
Well, let's talk about who do you think the ideal audience would be for this movie?
I think this is somebody who wants to sit back, relax, enjoy a character study, but get to see some bad guys cathartically get whacked along the way.
I'm laughing. You relax. Oh, somebody else got killed. Oh, I'm feeling so much better. I feel well, and I would truly, if Denzel Washington was in my town and crazy was ensuing, I'd be happy to have him nearby. I'd be his buddy. No kidding. I'd be like, yeah, I'm sorry you hurt yourself in the beginning, but you're better now, right? Because crazy's happening. Please help us. Do we have any questions from the box?
Seeing that this is being marketed as the final installment of the franchise, do you think this was a satisfying conclusion, assuming it is the final installment?
I think it wraps up its story nicely, and I think that's an important part of having a consistent creative team.
Correct.
There were some callbacks that I noticed after we got home, and I spent some time reviewing some footage of the first one. If you follow the franchise thus far, you're going to be well rewarded.
And people like me who are new to the franchise.
Well, I believe you said you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it for what it was. Again, it's rated R, pretty graphic. It wasn't unclear to me why it was rated R. I enjoyed it for what it was, but there were parts that were lulls that were a little bit boring, a little bit predictable. Because it's clear, right? Somebody's going to make him mad. What is he going to do? Well, I'll just, I'll go sit over at this table, or, hey, buddy, I'll see you later. It's like, I'm going to kill you and I'm going to find you.
I think that's a different movie franchise.
Oh, ooh. It felt a little killy. I don't know. I think that's just my thought. But if this is the end of the end, I won't, personally, just seeing the one, I won't be sad. I won't be sad because what are they going to say? He's retiring. Okay.
Well, maybe
really will. Maybe he really will start playing golf in Florida.
Well, maybe somebody else will take up the Equalizer mantle and he'll come here and there as a side character.
Oh, I thought you were going to say as a consultant to the new Equalizer.
Oh, that's another.
He has a consulting rate of, here's what you need to do. Here's how you need. Yeah, right.
We kind of get a little hint of that with Dakota Fanning's character.
Oh, yeah. But I don't see her as an equalizer.
Equalizer?
Oh, that one I would not see. I'm like, she's fine as an actress, but I don't know. She's not Denzel. Rebecca, it is that time of the show where the moths are going to land. And they're a little bit afraid of the Equalizer, so.
I'll make them land quick.
Land quick.
This is a 2 and a wing for me.
Okay, and number one reason for a 2 and a wing?
I've seen better from this franchise. Oof. And there's some tropes in here that are just played to the hilt. Mm. And I don't like that hilt anymore. I'm not as excited, but the creative team in terms of the auxiliary components, like the screenplay, the cinematography, and just the general direction carried the movie.
I would agree. I think it is a 3 in my mind. It's slightly above average. The cinematography pushed it over for me, as we were talking about. The set design, I'm a sucker for the set design. The nods to Scarface, as we were talking about, Godfather, didn't feel exploitive or we don't have another idea, so we're going to do this. It felt like it fit in well enough. And I was invested enough in Denzel's character. However, some of the supporting cast, I wasn't as invested. Not that I wanted to see anything bad happen to them.
Oh, yeah, that's never good.
Yeah, no. But I was like, well, well, they feel a little expendable, which I think that's another one, isn't it? We should review that one.
Oh, we should review all of those. I'd love to see your thoughts on that.
Oh, ooh, yeah. Well, so it's worth a watch in your mind, correct?
I think it's worth a watch with a contingent.
Meaning who should see it, or?
Yes.
Okay, who should see the movie?
Anyone who's seen the first two movies, I think, will appreciate this one.
Sure.
Or if you've seen this as just a standalone. I think this works as a standalone film.
Well, and I can speak to the standalone, meaning I think the average Anthony would probably enjoy it. Maybe the, average Antoinette would probably like it. However, I would say I know that there were parts that I was missing because I had not seen the previous two. I don't believe that affected my rating, listening to your rating, knowing that you've seen them and you're still like,
Yeah.
But as a standalone, it told the story enough. And to me, it was worth a watch. I enjoyed it. We saw it in the Dolby Cinema, and it was very comfortable. It was very easy to watch. The sound was great. The, big screen, of course, we're in the theater. However, just the sharpness of it, I think, added to the movie experience for me. Rebecca, it is that time of the show to talk about who we are not sponsored by.
Ooh, I'm curious.
This week, we are not sponsored by Ginsu Knives.
I thought you were going to say the estate of Bruce Lee. I really thought that's where you're going with this.
Ooh, no, Ginsu Knives. You know about Ginsu Knives?
Well, they sound very sharp.
Ginsu Knives came back way back in the day. Back before when I was just a kid. Ginsu Knives were advertising on television.
In Japan, the hand can be used like a knife. But this method doesn't work with a tomato. That's why we use the Ginsu. It's a knife that no kitchen should be without. The Ginsu can cut a slice of bread so thin you can almost see through it. It cuts meat better than an electric knife and goes through frozen food as though it were melted butter. The Ginsu is so sharp it can cut through a tin can and still slice a tomato like this. It can chop wood and still remain razor sharp. What's more, it's a knife that will last forever. How much would you pay for a knife like this? Before you answer, listen. It even comes with a matching fork to make carving a pleasure. Wait, there's much more. We also want you to have this 6-in-1 kitchen tool. It grates cheese and makes beautiful decorative vegetables. How much would you pay for all these items? Well, we'll even give you this set of 6 precision steak knives. The handles even match the Ginsu. And to make the offer completely irresistible, you'll get this unique spiral slicer. Down and down, around and around, and you'll have a beautiful garnish for your dinner table. Now how much would you pay? You get the Ginsu knife, the matching carving fork, the versatile 6-in-1 kitchen tool, a set of 6 steak knives, and the spiral slicer. You get them all, guaranteed in writing for 50 years, for only $9.95. It's the most incredible knife offer ever. Here's how to order.
In black and white, dang, that's old.
Oh, black and white. No, gold. The Ginsu Knives. So Ginsu Knives, you would think they would want to sponsor us. How many knives did we count killed people in the Equalizer movie?
A lot of knives.
And they have like steak knives, like a 6-piece steak knife. Gone. 6 of those, we would have just blown right through those. My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Easily blown through those.
Easily blown through. They're cooking. How
The
many knives?
opening shot is food.
Exactly. So you would think Ginsu would go, hey, we've been around since the 80s. Some people remember us. We're the ones that are like, sawing through cans and, cut through tomatoes and wood. They're chopping through the wood.
And other things.
And one of their claim to fame, no kidding, is a Ginsu knife was Lorena Bobbitt's weapon of choice.
Wow. That's up there.
Yeah, so back in the day, anybody who remembers Lorena Bobbitt, most of the men are probably remembering Lorena Bobbitt.
If you Google it, please put it under safe search.
Correct. She's using a knife. A Ginsu knife, literally. That's her claim to fame. And they weren't originally Ginsu knives. Do you know this?
No, I do not know this.
They were originally Quick Cut with a K.
Probably not to be confused with Cutco.
Oh, yeah, no. Cutcos are a little more spendy. I think these are a little bit more on the, side. But what's interesting is they were created by 3 men, and they went to the marketing department and said, we want to change the name. And so that's when they came up with the Ginsu, because they thought it, kind of the Japanese sword, super sharp. People are going to go, oh, Ginsu knives. And their commercials back in the day, oh my goodness, their commercials were an amazing low price. Order now. Operators are standing by. Back in 1980, a set of knives, steak knives, this and all these different fancy things, $10, $9.95. Coming from Rhode Island, not even Japan, not even super sharp. It's like Rhode Island was selling these.
That's a small state.
I laugh because their claim to fame was, but wait, there's more, and there was always more.
How much more?
Well, you get the steak knives, you get the double blade. I keep on calling them the double shredders. You would get a matching fork, so if you're, cutting up like your turkeys.
Tiny fork? Oh.
No, not
okay.
like a big fork. You go, and then you're sawing it down. And then the 6-in-1 kitchen tool. Ginsu actually makes those. Set of steak knives, and then the spiral spinner, like when you're making the little potato curls or the little apple curls.
Yeah, I'm kind of picturing that in my head.
Yeah, really.
Took me a second.
Yeah, you don't put it in your hair and do that. You just, with your food. Now, $38. You could buy a set of Ginsu knives. And eBay would sell you a set of Ginsu knives.
They could sponsor us for $38.
They could, but no. I know their low price does not include sponsor, even though 2 movies, Ginsu knives. Did you know that Johnny Carson used to use Ginsu knives on his bits way back in the day?
What bit was this?
Oh, no, there wasn't just one. It was multiple. He had these different routines, and he'd pull out a knife. Jerry Seinfeld was on Tonight Show and used a Ginsu knife.
That must have been a huge advertising coup
Oh,
for them.
my goodness. They're making money. Think they want to sponsor us?
That low advertising budget says no.
That low advertising budget says no. And the amazing part, I love this. So in Rhode Island, one of the founders, his name was Ed Valente. They named a street after the Ginsu knives. It's called Ginsu Way. So his office is, over here. And he literally has to drive past his office and then turn on to Ginsu Way to get there.
That's kind of convenient. Where do you live? I live on the place that's named after my stuff.
I agree. And starting in the 40s, been coming around, been traded and sold in a few. So they're still around, still making money. Think they're going to sponsor us?
Still not sponsoring us.
Still not sponsoring us. Thanks, Ginsu Knives. If you have seen The Equalizer 3 or My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3 and want to watch or share a channel with a friend, head over to our companion channel, Cocoon Cast, where I take this show and cut it up with a Ginsu knife into bite-sized clips. Perfect when you're short on time or just want to share a snack-sized review with your cinema community.
It's that time of the show where we want to hear from you, our Cocoon Cast community. We'd love to see you standing outside your favorite movie theater with your cinema community. So please send your photo to hello@cocooncast.com. Be sure to tell us who you are and what movie you're going to see so you can show our community your cinema spirit. We've also got some cool comments this week, so let's talk about that, Teresa.
All right. First up, we have Super Grand Films, who commented on our review of The Hill. Here's what was said. There were plenty of teary eyes when we went and saw this film in the theater. I am surprised by this review. It will be interesting to see how it does. Agreed. That's a great comment because I think we're not the end all.
No.
And I love the fact that our cinema community can comment about what they like or didn't like. Because, like we said, it will be different than us at different points. And I love the fact that there was such a reaction in the theater for this person. That they actually saw it and said, oh my gosh, it was emotional and it felt powerful. In no way do we want to discourage people from seeing a movie that they would genuinely like.
Just because the movie doesn't land for us doesn't mean that it's not going to land for your cinema community.
Correct.
In fact, I believe it was Elaine Sambuela who says, I love this movie. It is inspiring, fantastic acting from everyone. We have a home run with this movie.
I like the home run comment. That was funny.
I always love little cheeky bits.
I was going to say she gets the humor. Good for her.
More likely to spotlight with a cheeky bit.
Absolutely right. In two people loved the movie.
And we're not saying only 2 people love the movie.
Oh, that's true.
We're saying this is a sample size of our cinema community.
And to share what they love, to share their reaction, to share what their cinema community, how they responded to that. And I think it's a fair assessment and a fair statement to say, is this something that I would see? Is this something that I agree with? And I know our team, our Cocoon Cast team, we had talked a little bit more about it. And I don't think we were 100% clear in the respect of saying, is it worth a watch? Meaning we talk about different elements of the movie, what our reactions were to the movie, and what our take was. However, I think it is important for us as a cinema community and as a Cocoon Cast team on our end to be real clear. Is it worth a watch? Would we buy the movie? Who might like the movie? And even if we like the movie, it's not enough, I don't think, to say, oh, we liked it, so go see it. It's we're different demographics, right? Middle-aged woman, late 20s. We're not the entire cinema community, thankfully.
And I think that's really cool to see on our pages people not necessarily agreeing with us, because somebody who watches our review might still be on the fence, even if we clarify who we think this might be, even if we clarify what we liked, what we didn't, they still might be on the fence. And your input matters. Film is an art form that responds differently to different people.
Correct. And to be able to respectfully have comments with one another. And of course, we encourage that within our cinema community, not just dialoguing with us, but with one another. And as you said, different movies respond or react to different people's, experiences or what they like, who they like. As some of the actors and actresses, we've made it really clear who we like, or who the different directors or cinematographers who we like. I think it's great as a cinema community to start to learn who the players are and tell us who your favorites are. Who, comment below who really are you excited to see? I know when Steven Spielberg comes out with a movie, I'm always excited to see it. Most Denzel Washington movies, I would be happy to go see. And I think that's part of the movie experience, is the anticipation or the excitement about that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, next up we have Big Tony Styles commented on our review of Golda and the Hollywood News about the strike. Ooh, you could talk about the strike. All right, Big Tony says, the strike has legs, and I really think the guilds will hold strong for something fair. Executives have had their success, and now it's time for the workers to get their due. In the grand scheme of things, I think the strike will go down as a major turning point for all unions beyond writers and actors. I see them prevailing after a long fight.
I agree. I think that this strike is a huge watermark in terms of labor rights going forward. And that puts a lot of pressure on these unions to make a fair deal. The eyes of the world are on them, and also on the executives for making decisions for their people as well.
I agree with that. And so I appreciate that. So thank you, Big Tony, for bringing that again back to our cinema community's attention. Finally, let's see what Matt Maru 9108 had to say about our Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure short from last week. I have so many wonderful memories of this movie.
I think a lot of our staff felt vindicated when we chose this.
Vindicated. Yes, yes. Matt gets it.
You want to talk town crier? You were the, we need to do this movie. We need to do this movie.
We need to do this movie. And clearly Matt knows. I love the fact that he said he has many wonderful memories. Of course, me goes, what might those memories be?
Matt, you might want to comment down below. I'm sure our cinema community would love to hear a memory or two that you've shared with your cinema community about this movie.
Well, if you're not Matt, and Matt was kind enough to send us a comment, he's like, no, I'm good. That's what I'm going to say. I would say other people in our cinema community, if you've had a chance to see Pee-wee, even recently, maybe you have a great recent memory, comment below. If you have a memory back from 85 when it came out, we'd love to read those as well.
In addition to our comments, which we read each and every single comment on our videos, thank you. Please keep commenting. It really showcases our show to a wide variety in the cinema community. We want to showcase your photos. please send them in by 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wednesday to hello@cocooncast.com.
Now it's time for some Hollywood news. Rebecca, tell us about Tom Cruise is cruising for her bruising is what I'm hearing.
This is going to end up with egg on everybody's face if they don't do this right.
Wow. All right. So tell us where you found this information and a little bit more about what's happening.
So the initial article that we're pulling from is an article by Jody Brown of Comic Book Resources. Jody was recently listening to a podcast. It's called The Town with Matthew Bologna. Matthew interviews all kinds of Hollywood execs. This episode specifically is the head of IMAX.
Oh, wow.
Richard Gelford.
Okay. And what was going on there?
So for those of you in our cinema community who don't pay attention to dates, release times, all that sort of thing, it's what I do. But Mission Impossible, the new one, Dead Reckoning, Part 1,
Got it.
was only released in IMAX for 11 days.
And that was surprising.
It's surprising because the Mission Impossible franchise is considered to be a summer hit franchise. The big thing on everybody's mind was Oppenheimer, though. Christopher Nolan is known for loving IMAX, playing with everything new, and that was immediately slotted after Mission Impossible.
No, from what I understand is he was already scheduled, meaning Christopher Nolan was already slated to go into that time frame.
These dates are planned oftentimes years in advance.
Wow.
Bruce Marco actually did an interview with Benny Harivan at Forbes explaining that they tried desperately to move Mission Impossible because they explained to Paramount, Tom Cruise and co, that if you do this, you will get slammed in terms of not making money.
So he was warned.
He was warned.
Wow. And he said, never mind, I've got this. I mean,
basically.
Wow.
The ego has landed and deflated.
Well, and my understanding is now he's going back and he's saying, well, you told me this a while ago. I kind of heard you, but, well, maybe there's a chance that I can come back.
Well, I think he's trying to do this because Oppenheimer actually had their IMAX run extended.
That is true. I did read that as well.
Gran Turismo shifted their initial release date due to the strike. There were some preview screenings. We were lucky enough to see a preview screening during this window. But Blue Beetle was slotted to come in after Oppenheimer. Now that Oppenheimer has made so much money in their initial run, they've seriously discussed bringing him back to theaters for possibly an Oscar campaign, honestly.
Correct. Back in the IMAX, again, bumping Tom Cruise out one more time.
Yes, IMAX confirmed to Screen Rant that is the case. They do want to re-release it, especially now that Blue Beetle has left the building in terms of IMAX.
Well, and I know in our local theater, the Nun movie is in the IMAX currently.
The Nun 2, yes.
No, sorry. There was a Nun 1. There it is. And so that's going to run for the Nun Run. Nun Run 2 is going to run. Nun Run 2 is going to run a little bit longer. But then the thought is to bring back Oppenheimer. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that's not even before we get to Barbie with all the extra scenes added into that.
Oh, Barbie in IMAX. We saw Barbie in Dolby Cinema. That was pretty good.
I like that. That was a nice way to see the complete picture.
And Tom Cruise. Wow. I'm sure he's thrilled.
Thrilled is not the word I would describe how that man is feeling right now.
Well, to the man's credit, he is actively campaigning. He's talking to everyone. He's like, well, hey, I did it with Top Gun 2. Trust me. I've heard some of his arguments.
But you want to know the key thing? And Richard brought this up. Top Gun 2 had an immense advertising campaign behind it.
Sure. Oh, I believe that.
Immense. The most I remember us seeing for Mission Impossible was, there's a couple scenes in IMAX, you might like this. No, Top Gun was, see this in IMAX. It's the only way to see it. It's what we designed this for.
That is correct.
And I love Christopher McQuarrie, but come on, man. Promote your movie harder.
Do we have any questions from the box?
Being that none of the scenes in the Mission Impossible were filmed in IMAX, do you think people would be disappointed by going to see it on IMAX and none of the scenes expand?
I think the audience could respect the fact that some of these scenes are shot for IMAX, not filmed for IMAX. There is a huge difference in terms of creative experience. I agree with Richard. Unless there is a huge marketing campaign for the demand, this audience, they're not going to go see it. It's not like we're trying to get the Oscar for best action-y movie this year.
Action-y, I'm sure that's a category. That's a new category for the Oscars.
They got to bump up that viewership, man. They got to do it somehow.
We got to come up with some new titles or some new categories.
I agree with Richard. I think this is going to be a flop. Like I said in the beginning of this, there's going to be egg on somebody's face if this happens.
Oh, something's happening.
I heard that you have an interesting retrospective for us. A little less extensive than the Paul Rubens one, but still interesting.
I do. Oh, our cinema community may not know, but one of my favorite actors is
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson. Back in the day, I had read it. It's a compilation article. It was kind of interesting. It actually came out on Fox, which is kind of an interesting news source. However, it was interesting because the article cited AARP, Esquire, multiple sources. So it's well documented. But what stood out for me was you and I had talked. I've heard the buzz that Liam Neeson is only doing action movies and not necessarily terrific choices. Yeah, and the sad part is, love him or hate him, like the action movies or not, I end up seeing 9 out of 10 of them.
But he's your favorite.
He's my favorite, and I remember seeing him. I think the first movie I remember he was Jesus Christ in Pilgrim's Progress.
Is it the beard?
Well, yeah, back in the day, the hair and the beard. But honestly, what stood out for me is he was in a smaller movie, Leap of Faith, where Steve Martin was a televangelist, or not a televangelist, was a traveling evangelist. That was a crazy movie. He had a smaller part in that, but that was pretty good. But then Schindler's List is when he really jumped onto the scene, and I know your dad and I just were like, he is phenomenal.
It's really funny seeing him jump into these action roles. Because,
literally, right?
Well, when I was a kid, he was just, oh, look, it's mom's favorite guy from Michael Collins.
That's true. Michael Collins, he was in Les Mis, Rob Roy.
Yes.
All movies you've seen and grown up seeing.
It's just really strange to see him go from dramatic Oscar bait,
correct, he
sword
was
and
nominated.
sorcery movies, to I'm going to find you, and when I do, it's just like, okay, it makes sense, but like, wow.
Well, and I laugh because you and your father had seen Taken 1.
That's correct.
Taken 2.
Yep.
And 3.
Of course.
Of course. It's the trifecta of Liam Neeson.
Did you see 4 with us? I can't remember.
Oh, 4. I didn't even remember there was a 4. Now, I remember this was, daddy-daughter date. I'll skip that one. And I remember I hadn't seen 1, and you and your dad said, oh, you should see 1, you should see 1. So I saw 1. I had like nightmares for like a couple of weeks going, oh my gosh, this man's daughter is taken. And I remember your dad said, well, it's good. So if somebody takes you or, you, I would know what to do. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm kind of glad he saw it, but I thought that was interesting. But I really thought it was kind of a fluke because the first one was in 2008.
Yes, because also to answer your question, there was not a Taken 4. There was a Taken series.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was thinking.
And was he in that?
No, I believe that was a prequel series.
Oh, okay. I was Taken 4. I'm like, holy cow, I don't
remember there were
4.
so many jokes about if it's 4, it'd be taken for granted.
Well, and here's the thing, Taken 4, take it off the screen. If you like the movies, they're done reasonably well. I respect that because I remember seeing part of 2, and then when the wife went, I'm like, I'm out of here. First took the kid, and nightmares takes the wife. I think I'm done. However, my affinity for him is very strong still. I think he's a great actor. When he lost his wife, Natasha Richardson, that was a real deal.
I remember that affected you quite strongly because you have grown up in your later adulthood with Neeson's work.
Correct. And to find him, he's quite the womanizer, he's a little handsome guy and, pretty good actor kind of thing. But to find the love of his life, he went on to have 2 children with her. He seemed very happy with her. I think there was something very sobering around that, to go, gosh, he found someone that he just loves, has a family with, and for her to pass away in such a tragic skiing accident just was very moving to me.
I was shocked about how fast that news traveled.
I would agree with that. Well, she was, kind of, movie royalty. She has family that, have been in the theaters forever. So I think that was part of it. And they were seen, I don't know if a power couple, but they were definitely seen as a respectable couple within the Hollywood.
It was just interesting to me just to see how just massive the response was.
Well, and so let's talk about that. So he's done 100 movies at this point. In February, marked 100 movies.
Wow.
And prior to his wife's passing, she passed away in 2009 in her 40s. He had done 40 movies prior to that. Then all of a sudden, all these action movies. He refers to himself as the unlikely action hero, which I'll go with that. But I think what drew my attention to reading this article about him was the fact that he's done so many of these movies. And there was a part where you go, why is he doing these movies? And there's a part in the article where he does talk about that, where some of the movies were to get past some of his grief. But then he also, the part that was so fascinating was it was very intentional. He said he'll read the scripts with a cup of tea, and if he puts his cup of tea down, then it's a sign, right, that the movie's not too bad. He should look into it. But if it's boring,
or you have to go refill the cup of tea.
Correct. He's like, no, I know. And I think that's the part that really fascinated me, that it was so intentional.
Almost all of his creative process, especially you've sent me dozens of articles over the years,
Sure,
is very intentional.
Yes.
It's not method to the level of Daniel Day-Lewis per se.
Oh, yeah, that's a different category, I would say.
But Neeson really takes the time, from what I've seen, and just paying attention to what he does compared to other actors in his space to psychologically map his characters.
I would agree with that. He had said he believes in, this is in a 2022 interview with AARP, which means he's getting older. But he said, he explained that the violence he witnessed throughout his childhood may have influenced the roles he chose in becoming an actor, meaning some of the more action-oriented movies. He said, it's a different kind of post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't know if it has scarred me, but it has definitely formed something in my characters. Maybe even when I play these violent roles, I'm trying to bring some quality of redemption or justice. And that shifted it for me. I know a few years ago he had done the movie Walk Among the Tombstones, and that felt very much that genre, very much that justice piece. However, it really shifted my thinking around Taken 1 through 3. And some of the other movies. The Retribution is his latest movie that's currently out in the theaters now. But I don't know. It just said this is more meaningful, and he has 7 more action films coming out in the future. So he's not done. And it's not, he gave up in his career after his wife passed away. This is very intentional, and it's tapping into another part of him from when he was a young man.
I guess you could say he's nonstop.
Wow.
That was, oof.
That's yeah, I know. I know. I think I like that one more than your dad too.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the story of recent. I think I like that one more than, yeah, right. Do we have any questions from the box?
In my opinion, most of the movies he's done lately have been not that good. Do you think there's a point where he's going to shift back to getting a role that would be more Oscar worthy, or is he going to just stay in these roles and finish his career that way?
I think Neeson wants to find roles with substance, so I could easily see him kind of leaning back to that, in addition to keeping his little side hobby of, the action flicks.
I love it. His action movies. That's his side hustle. I think he is a complicated individual.
Isn't everyone?
Well,
Michael Bay joke here.
Insert Michael Bay joke. Sorry, Michael Bay.
No, you're not.
But yeah, not really. I've never around Michael Bay. I think because he is a complex character, he has a motivation for doing every movie that he does, which may or may not be Oscar worthy. I don't know if that season is behind him. The fact that he has 7 more and he's in his late 60s, he may be close to done doing or seeking out more serious roles. However, we see, Michael Keaton has come back on the scene, taking more
loved
serious
him in
roles.
Spotlight. That was just such a beautiful movie.
Yeah, so I think that there is a possibility. There definitely is a place in Hollywood for older actors. Harrison Ford, 80, doing The Dial of Destiny. He still has time to do these if he so chooses.
That's the thing I love seeing now is it's not you're 50, hang up your cap, go home. There's definitely an audience for older movie stars. It's not just you go to TV to die anymore.
No, and it's shifting for women as well. Helen Mirren has been in a number of movies more recently as well. And I love the fact that they're the men actors, but, of course, I expect and hope to see more women following that as well.
Well, there's also a lot of creative teams behind the scenes that like maybe 10, 15 years ago wouldn't get a spotlight. I'm thinking of like Boots Riley.
Correct. That's good. Thanks for joining us this week. We're always excited to create experiences that bring our cinema community together.
Next week, we're excited to get things a little bit spooky with A Haunting in Venice, and for our Retro Rewind, The Game.
Please remember to like, subscribe, and to share our channel.
If you enjoyed the show, you might want to check out last week where we did a retrospective to Paul Rubens' Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Mystery Man.
Remember, cinema community, movies are
Better together.
Thanks for watching. See you next week.